Alien girl found the human fixing her broken pendant. What she whispered after softened him. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to our main character. The storm rolled across Orbital Station K-47 like a metal drum being struck from the outside, each vibration traveling through the floor panels beneath Ethan Cole's boots. He crouched under a maintenance console, the glow of a flickering diagnostic light brushing across his face in pale pulses. A soft clink echoed near his knee. Something small had rolled across the grated floor, oval, crystalline, fractured down its center. The moment he picked it up, a faint warmth brushed his palm, like a memory trying to breathe. The pendant wasn't standard station tech. It was shaped from layered crystal, delicate etchings spiraling across its surface with a craftsmanship too careful to be factory-made. Ethan turned it gently, angling it toward the lone emergency lamp, watching the cracks scatter the light like broken water. The storm outside roared again, rattling the corridor. He shifted closer to his toolkit, pulling out a precision welder. His fingers moved by instinct, quiet, patient, almost reverent, as if the pendant were something living rather than a broken object abandoned in the wrong hallway at the wrong time. A soft footstep behind him made him glance up. For a split second, he thought the stormlight had taken shape, but it was her. The alien girl stood still as ice, tall and blue-skinned, the soft azure of her complexion glowing faintly beneath the emergency lights. Her silver eyes locked onto the pendant in his hand, and something in her expression tightened, not anger, not fear, but a guarded tension that made the humming corridor feel even narrower. Ethan lifted both hands slightly, pendant resting in one palm, welder in the other. Found it on the floor, he said, voice low to avoid startling her. Figured I'd try to fix it. She didn't move. Only her eyes shifted, from him, to the pendant, then back to him, as if calculating a distance. She wasn't sure she wanted to cross. The storm boomed again, shaking dust from an overhead vent. Ethan steadied the pendant with one thumb and brought the welder tip close. Sparks whispered across the crack, stitching light back into its seam. The alien girl's breathing slowed. The corridor dimmed. Even the storm seemed to hush. The glow from the pendant steadied, a soft pulse traveling through its core. He didn't look at her while he worked, respectful, focused, never assuming. When the final thread of crystal fused, he exhaled softly, letting the tool drop back into his kit. He held the pendant out to her, open-handed, without stepping closer. No demand, no expectation, only the repaired memory between them. Her fingers brushed his palm as she took it. Cool, careful, trembling just slightly. And in that tremble, the storm outside felt suddenly very far away. She held the pendant close to her chest, the faint blue glow reflecting across her features like a quiet tide returning to shore. For a moment Ethan thought she might turn and walk away without a word, but instead she stood still, studying him with an expression he could not quite read. The corridor lights flickered again as the storm rolled along the station hall, the hum of distant generators deepening like a slow heartbeat under their feet. Ethan wiped a smear of crystal dust from his fingertips and finally broke the silence. I did not mean to intrude on anything personal, he said softly. It just looked like it mattered. The alien girl shifted her weight, her shoulders lifting slightly as if bracing against a wind only she could feel. Her voice, when it came, was quiet but clear, carrying an accent shaped by a language built on resonance rather than force. It does matter, she said. More than you know. She looked down at the pendant again, brushing her thumb along the repaired seam. Light shimmered beneath the surface, steady and warm. Ethan noticed how her breathing changed, no longer tense, more grounded, as if the small object anchored her to the moment. The storm outside thumped one more time, and a soft alarm chirped overhead before settling. Station is stabilizing, Ethan murmured, glancing toward a nearby panel. Good timing, too. I thought that hatch might shake loose if the pressure kept jumping. She tilted her head slightly, the silver in her eyes catching the dim light. You speak calmly for someone working under faulty systems. Comes with the job, he replied. If you panic around machinery, machinery panics back. A tiny sound escaped her, almost like a laugh, but quieter, more like a shift in the air. She stepped closer, not enough to invade space, just enough that he could see the fine speckles of bioluminescence along her cheekbones. You fixed it as if it belonged to you, she said. No hesitation. No demand. What? Ethan rested his hands on his knees, thinking carefully. Sometimes things are lost or broken before someone even realizes it, he said. If I can help put a piece back together, I do. It is just who I am. Her eyes softened, a warm ripple spreading across her otherwise still expression. She looked down, gathering a breath, then raised her gaze again. Among my people, a pendant like this carries memory threads, she explained. They are fragments of sound, moments, voices. We keep them as reminders of who we are. Ethan nodded. So it is more than jewelry. It is the last voice of someone I loved, she said quietly. Her fingers tightened around the crystal, but her composure stayed steady. Ethan felt the atmosphere shift, not heavy, but meaningful. He did not reach for the pendant again, nor did he ask anything further. He simply offered a gentle nod, acknowledging the weight without trying to measure it. Another tremor moved faintly beneath the floor, but the lights held steady this time. She took one slow step closer, meeting his gaze with a sincerity so open it held him still. Her voice lowered, soft enough that the storm could not steal it. When I saw you repairing it, she whispered, I realized you treated it the way I remember her treating me. With care, not obligation. The words settled between them, warm and unexpected, and for the first time since the storm began, the station felt quiet. The quiet between them lingered, thin as a breath, as the emergency lights along the corridor finally steadied. Ethan rose slowly from his crouched position, brushing his palms against his work pants, the faint grit of crystal dust catching on his fingertips. The alien girl held the pendant as if reacquainting herself with something she thought she had already lost. Its glow softened the angles of her face, turning her expression into something almost serene. My name is Leary, she said at last, her voice like a note struck gently on a glass instrument. If I am to speak of things that matter, you should know who is speaking them. Ethan offered a small nod. Ethan Cole, maintenance crew. Section 5, most days, anyway. She studied him a moment, as if testing how the name fit the person. Ethan, she repeated, shaping the syllables carefully. The way she spoke it made it sound like an intention rather than a label. A soft chime sounded overhead, signaling that the station had returned to stable pressure levels. The hum beneath their feet shifted, smoothing into a calm rhythm, and the overhead panels brightened by a fraction. The storm was passing. Leary glanced toward the long stretch of hallway behind her, then toward Ethan again. You repaired this with remarkable precision, she said, lifting the pendant slightly. Most would not understand how the crystal layers must align. Ethan shrugged lightly. I saw the fracture lines. They did not look random. They looked like they wanted to come back together. For a heartbeat, she simply watched him, silver eyes reflecting the pendant's glow. You see patterns where others see scraps, she said. That is a rare trait. I just try to pay attention, he replied. Machines tell you what they need if you listen long enough. Leary tilted her head, a thoughtful gesture. And people? Ethan chuckled softly. People are harder. She seemed to consider this, her gaze drifting to the pendant resting against her palm. Among my people, memory threads do not speak unless the heart is steady. I thought this one was gone forever. When the fracture appeared, the sound inside faded. Sound? Ethan asked. A voice, she said. One that meant everything to me once. She did not elaborate, and he did not push. Instead, he watched her lift the pendant to her ear, the crystal shimmering as if recognizing its owner. Her eyes closed briefly. Whatever she heard was hers alone, but the soft exhale she released carried something like relief. The corridor lights brightened again, signaling the all clear. Other footsteps echoed distantly, crew members returning to their routes now that the danger had passed. But for a moment, it still felt like the station held space just for them. Leary opened her eyes. You did not know what this contained, she said, but you still chose to restore it. Ethan nodded. I figured it mattered. And if I could help, well, why would I not? Leary stepped closer, the faint luminescent speckles along her skin catching the renewed overhead light. Most beings do nothing unless there is something to gain, she said quietly. Yet you gain nothing from this. Ethan met her gaze, unguarded. Not everything is a transaction. She held his eyes a long moment, as if weighing the truth of his words against something old and heavy within her. Then she whispered, almost to herself, perhaps that is what I am learning tonight. The pendant glowed softly between them, unbroken now, its quiet light steady as a promise. The soft rhythm of the station settled into something almost peaceful as the last traces of the ion storm faded into the distance. Ethan and Leary began walking down the corridor together without discussing where they were going, their footsteps falling into an easy sync. The overhead panels brightened to daytime mode, casting a warm white glow along the polished metal walls. Leary held the pendant gently, as if reacquainting herself with its weight and warmth, every so often brushing her thumb across the restored seam. The quiet hum of ventilation drifted through the hallway like a steady breath. Ethan glanced at her, not wanting to disturb the calm forming around her, yet curious. Does it sound different now? He asked. Leary kept her gaze ahead, but her tone softened. No. It sounds the way it was meant to sound. Clear. Whole. She paused, then added, memory threads respond to intention. If the crystal senses care rather than force, it restores more easily. Ethan chuckled lightly. Well, I do not think anyone has ever accused me of forcing anything to cooperate. Machines get grumpy when pushed. A small glimmer of amusement crossed her face, subtle but genuine. Perhaps that is why the pendant responded. You repair things the way my people believe healing should happen. With patience. They reached a junction where a transparent wall looked out over the curve of Earth, blue and white against the black. The view was always stunning, but somehow the silence beside him made it feel new. Leary stopped, drawn toward the glass. The pendant glowed faintly in her hand, catching reflections of cloud swirls and sunlight. Ethan stood a respectful distance away, watching her. Take it in. She did not speak for a long moment. When she finally did, her voice held a softness he had not heard before. I came to this station searching for something familiar, she said. But everything here feels loud. Uncertain. Ethan nodded. First time away from home. First time without someone who understood what home meant, she replied. The pendant brightened slightly, responding to the shift in her emotions. Ethan's tone gentled. You do not have to explain. I get it. Loss has its own gravity. Leary turned toward him, studying his face with a quiet curiosity. You speak as if you know the weight. Ethan looked out the window briefly, letting the curved horizon steady him. Maybe not the same kind, he said, but enough to know it does not go away. It just changes shape. She listened, not with pity, but with recognition. Her posture eased, shoulders lowering, as if releasing something she had been holding alone for too long. Your people feel deeply, she said. Human emotion, it is louder than ours, but it is also warmer. Sometimes too warm, Ethan joked softly. Makes for messy repairs. Leary held his gaze, a small spark of understanding forming between them. Yet you repair anyway. The pendant glowed again, brighter this time, as if agreeing. A soft announcement echoed overhead, calling crew members back to regular duties. Leary stepped back from the window slowly, her fingers closing around the pendant. Ethan, she said, saying his name more confidently now. Would you walk with me a little longer? I am not yet ready to return to the noise. Ethan smiled, gentle and steady. Sure. Lead the way. And as they moved together down the illuminated hall, the station around them felt quieter, calmer, as if acknowledging that something between them had begun to shift into place. They walked together through the quieter wing of Orbital Station K-47, where the hum of machinery softened into a low whisper and the foot traffic thinned until only distant echoes marked the presence of anyone else. Leary moved with a calmer rhythm now, her earlier tension replaced with something more contemplative. The pendant rested against her collarbone, its glow faint but steady, as if matching her breathing. Ethan kept an easy pace beside her, letting her choose the direction without comment. They passed a row of observation panels, each offering a different angle of Earth turning slowly below. Leary paused at one, her gaze drawn not to the planet, but to the reflection of the pendant's soft blue light against the glass. When crystal remembers, she said quietly, it does not simply store a sound. It stores how that sound felt. Ethan leaned lightly against the railing. Like emotional resonance. Yes, she replied. A memory thread is not a recording. It is a moment preserved in shape. She touched the pendant gently, her fingers tracing the restored seam. I feared that when it broke, the moment inside broke with it. Ethan nodded slowly. But it did not. It just needed real care. She considered that, her eyes thoughtful. Care is not a common skill, she said. Not many choose to give it freely. Ethan smiled slightly. Maybe not. But I think more people would if they understood how far it can reach. She turned toward him, studying him in that steady, attentive way she had. You speak as if care has been both a gift and a burden to you. Ethan lifted one shoulder in a quiet shrug. I grew up fixing things. Not everything stayed fixed, but trying mattered. Sometimes it was the only thing that made sense. Leary listened without interrupting, her posture softening as she absorbed the meaning behind his words. Then she shifted her focus to the window again, watching sunlight flare across the curve of the ocean far below. Your world looks peaceful from here, she murmured. Is it? Ethan let out a breath. Sometimes. Sometimes not. But there are good moments. Honest ones. People trying to do right even when it is not easy. She nodded slowly. That is familiar. My people believe that the heart is proven not by triumph, but by quiet acts that cannot be witnessed by anyone but oneself. Ethan glanced at her, appreciating the sentiment. That sounds like something worth believing in. It is, she said. It is why the pendant matters. The voice inside. It was someone who believed that very thing. Her fingers closed around the crystal again, and for a moment she looked younger, not in age but in vulnerability. Ethan noticed the subtle tremor in her breath. Leary, he said softly, you do not have to stand here alone with that memory. She blinked, a slow, thoughtful motion. You keep offering space, she said. Not questions. Not demands. Just space. Sometimes that is all someone needs, he replied. She looked at him fully now, silver eyes clear and steady. Then walk with me a little more. The station feels different with you near. Less cold. Ethan straightened, giving her a gentle nod. Anywhere you want to go. As they continued down the quiet corridor, the pendant's glow reflected softly against the metal walls, following them like a small, patient light that refused to fade. They moved into one of the station's quieter research corridors, where the lights dimmed automatically to reduce energy use, and the air carried the soft scent of sterilized metal. The hum of distant engines blended with the gentle vibration under their feet, steady and calm. Leary slowed her pace, her fingers brushing lightly against the pendant as if grounding herself in its warmth. Ethan noticed the way her gaze lingered on each door panel they passed, studying the symbols, the glow strips, the subtle shift in pressure between sections. You are mapping the station in your head, Ethan said with a small smile. Most visitors get lost by this point. It is not the station I am mapping, Leary replied. It is how it feels. She looked down the long stretch of hallway, her expression reflective. Every place has an emotional temperature. This one is unsettled. Ethan nodded. It has been a rough month. System upgrades, crew changes, supply delays. People are tense. And you? She asked. Are you tense? Ethan huffed softly. I try not to be, but I guess everyone carries something. Leary came to a slow stop near a recessed alcove where a narrow observation slit offered a view of the stars. She turned toward him, her voice gentler now. Humans speak of carrying things. We speak of resonances. The difference is small. Ethan crossed his arms loosely, leaning one shoulder to the wall. So what does my resonance tell you? She hesitated, studying him with a clarity that made the moment feel sharper, more deliberate. You quiet rooms without trying, she said. That is what I noticed first. Even the station feels calmer when you move through it. Ethan blinked, caught off guard. I have never heard someone describe it like that. It is not a compliment, she clarified softly. It is an observation. He chuckled lightly. Feels like both. Leary stepped closer to the observation slit, her outline, framed by starlight. The pendant shimmered against her skin, humming faintly. When you repaired this, she said, touching the crystal, you acted without knowing what it held. My people would say that you responded to resonance rather than information. Ethan tilted his head. And that matters? It matters greatly, Leary answered. Intention is the foundation of our customs. If you repair something for reward, the object remembers the reward. If you repair something for care, The object remembers the care. Ethan considered that. So the pendant remembers me repairing it? It remembers the way your hands shaped the moment, she replied. Memory threads are sensitive. They feel sincerity. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. Well, now I feel like I should have combed my hair first. Leary gave a soft breath that could have been amusement. The crystal does not judge appearance. She turned back to him fully, her expression shifting to something more serious. But there is something else you must understand. Ethan straightened slightly. What is that? Leary held the pendant gently between her fingers. When you touched this, you touched the last memory of someone who taught me our customs. She believed that intention reveals truth more clearly than words. She looked into his eyes, steady and unguarded. You have shown truth without meaning to. Ethan felt a quiet stillness settle around them, the kind that did not need to be spoken aloud. He did not break her gaze. He did not step back. Instead he said, gently, then I am glad the truth meant something to you. The pendant glowed brighter, as if agreeing, its soft light tracing the outline of her hand and the quiet bond forming between them. The glow of the pendant softened as Leary let it rest against her collarbone again, but the quiet between her and Ethan did not fade with it. If anything, it deepened, settling into the space like a truth neither had planned to acknowledge so soon. The corridor around them hummed with the familiar rhythm of the station, yet something felt different now, as if the air itself had paused to listen. A gentle chime sounded overhead, signaling the completion of the storm recovery cycle. Systems were back online. Crew members began moving through adjoining sections, their muffled conversations drifting through open doorways, but none came down this hallway. It was as if the station understood. Not to interrupt. Leary turned slightly toward Ethan, her features calm, but her eyes carrying an unspoken weight. There is a danger in resonance, she said quietly. It reveals things even when one is not ready to face them. Ethan kept his posture relaxed, hands loosely in his pockets. Does the pendant show you something new? She shook her head slowly. Not the pendant. You. The word lingered in the air, soft but precise. Ethan felt the moment narrow, not tense, but focused. What about me? She took a breath, steady and controlled. Among my people, intention is a form of truth. When you repaired the crystal, your intention touched the memory thread inside. The pendant reflects that truth back to me now. And what truth is that? Ethan asked, his voice low. Leary looked at him fully, silver eyes bright in the dim corridor. You care without calculation. You act without seeking advantage. That is rare. It is also disarming. Ethan let out a gentle exhale, almost a laugh. I did not realize helping someone could be disarming. It is when one is not accustomed to it, Leary replied. She shifted slightly, the pendant catching a sliver of starlight through the observation slit. In my culture, such sincerity carries implication. It is usually shared only between those who have already built trust. Ethan nodded slowly. I did not mean to cross any boundaries. No, she said quickly. You did not cross anything. But you created something. Ethan felt the meaning, quiet and real. If I created something, you had a part in it too. Her gaze softened. Perhaps. The lights along the base of the wall brightened as the station adjusted to a new cycle. Leary stepped closer to the observation slit, her voice quieter now. There is something else you should understand. When a memory thread is repaired by another person, it sometimes forms a secondary connection. It carries not just the original voice, but an echo of the moment of repair. Ethan blinked. So now the pendant remembers me. Yes, she said. And through it, I can feel the sincerity of your intention more clearly than spoken words. She turned back toward him. This is why my people treat such acts with care. Fixing a memory thread is not simply fixing an object. It is allowing another person's intent to touch a piece of one's past. Ethan absorbed that in silence. Does that bother you? She shook her head, a slow, deliberate motion. No, it surprises me. Then, with a quiet steadiness that carried far more weight than volume, she added, and it humbles me. Ethan's expression softened. I am glad it was not unwelcome. Leary looked down the hallway, then back at him, as if deciding something privately. Ethan, she said gently, would you stay with me a little longer? The memory thread feels clearer when you are near. I would like to hear it without the noise of the station. Ethan nodded, warm and sure. Of course. And as they walked side by side again, The pendant glowed faintly, as if guiding them with a quiet light that neither fully understood yet both trusted instinctively. They reached one of the lesser-used observation decks, a narrow chamber tucked between two maintenance sectors where the lights dimmed automatically and the curve of space stretched across an entire wall of reinforced glass. The stars hung close here, bright and unmoving, as if the station were drifting through a field of suspended sparks. Leary stepped toward the glass with a quiet intake of breath. The pendant's glow strengthened in response, shimmering against her collarbone like a heartbeat made of light. Ethan stopped a few paces behind her, giving her room while still staying near enough for the memory thread to resonate the way she had described. Leary lifted the pendant gently, holding it between her palms. For a moment she closed her eyes. When she spoke, her voice carried an unusual softness. "The memory is clearer," she whispered, as if the storm shook it awake. Ethan watched the faint pulses of light travel through the crystal. "What do you hear?" She took a moment to answer, her expression settling into something tender and far away. "A voice," she said. "Warm. Familiar. It is speaking my name." Ethan did not interrupt. The room felt almost sacred, quiet enough to hear the gentle hum of the temperature regulators. Leary opened her eyes again and looked toward him. "The thread remembers more than her voice. It remembers the feeling of being safe. That is what I thought I had lost." Her fingers trembled slightly as she lowered the pendant. "When the crystal fractured, I feared the memory would dissolve. My people believe that when a memory thread breaks, part of the past breaks with it." Ethan stepped forward just enough to speak softly, without his voice echoing. "Maybe some things do not break as easily as we think. Maybe they just wait for the right moment to come back." Leary studied him, the starlight reflecting in her eyes. "You say it as though you know this from experience." Ethan looked out at the dark stretch of space, his tone thoughtful. "I think everyone carries moments they wish they could restore. Times they wish had one more breath, one more word, one more chance." Leary listened closely, her posture relaxing into something more open. "Your resonance," she said quietly, "is steadier here. The pendant responds to that. It feels calmer." Ethan gave a small, warm smile. "Maybe it knows you are not alone with it now." The words settled between them like a quiet truth. Leary turned the pendant slowly in her hand, watching how the starlight scattered through its facets. "When someone repairs a memory thread," she said, "they become linked to the echo within. The crystal carries a trace of the moment of restoration. Usually, that moment is technical, detached. Yours was not." Ethan rubbed his palm, remembering how he had held the delicate crystal while welding its seam. "I just wanted to help. Nothing complicated." "But intention is never simple," Leary replied. "It shapes the echo, and the echo shapes how the memory returns." She stepped a little closer, not quite closing the space between them, but enough that the pendant cast a soft blue glow across both of their faces. "When I listen now," she said, "I hear her voice, yes. But I also feel the sincerity of the moment you repaired it. It makes the memory warmer." Ethan felt something quiet shift inside him, not heavy, but meaningful. "I am glad," he said. "If the memory came back warmer, then it came back the right way." Leary held his gaze, silver eyes steady. "It did, and I did not expect that." Outside the window, a thin streak of light from a passing satellite brushed across the stars, brief and silent. Inside the small chamber, the pendant glowed softly between them, carrying past and present in the same quiet pulse.